Hello, Assalamualaikum everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of Pecuniary Season 3, all about ringgits. So you are here with me, your host, Amira. Alright, so in this very episode, we will be talking about a topic that is much needed for us to talk. It is called study loan risky or tricky? You know, we can't avoid to talk about this because, in order to further our study, we actually need a lot of money. So study loan is a thing that we need to consider. And of course, I am not alone today in the studio. We have the co-founder of the Millennial Finance, which is a YouTube channel that helps people understand money in a simple but fun way, right? So welcome, Brother EDLY.
Thanks for having me.
So, in order to break the ice to the viewers, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So, my background is I went to law school. I studied for 3 years. About halfway through, I realized that I didn't want to pursue a law career.
Oh.
And so from there, I ventured out and tried different jobs, multiple jobs in different areas. And eventually now I am currently a digital marketer. So I help companies run their ads online and run their marketing campaigns online. And on the side, I also run YouTube channels and help people grow their brand and help people build their YouTube channel so that they can share their message and share their ideas with others.
So like that's your course or your study in law like helps you in the digital marketing?
Yeah, so I would say that studying your course, there are a lot of things that you would pick up that is not related to your actual course. So for example, studying law, skills that I picked up from law school would be reading, how to read faster, how to digest information faster, how to write well, how to write clearly, how to listen to other people, how to speak well and share my ideas. So all those basic skills I think are not wasted. And even in the law space, whenever I have a contract to look at, which we're going to talk about later on student loans and contracts, just read it, I can understand it. And if some of my friends need help with their contracts, or even if I have a client or an employment contract, I can easily understand it.
So it's definitely not a waste to take the law. Yeah, okay. So, before we go into further, about this topic of study loan, let us talk about like the surface topics or the surface of the study loan. So what are the basic things that students need to know before they apply to for the study loan?
Right, yeah. So the first thing I would say you need to know is that a study loan is a loan and that it's not a grant or not necessarily a scholarship. So one thing you have to keep in mind is that if it's a loan, you have to pay it back. And if you deviate from the terms of the loan and you don't pay it back or you pay it late, then that might have very big consequences to your financial life going into adulthood. And that's not a very nice thing to have, especially if you're still very young, still a student. True. And you already have the wrong foot into your financial life. And so another thing I would say, what you need to know before applying for a student loan is you need to understand what kind of loan you're getting, how much the amount is, what the interest rate is, what the repayment schedule is like, what happens if you fail to pay, what happens if you deviate and change your mind. And also one thing to ask yourself is, what are you using this loan money for? Are you using it to pay your school fees, your tuition fees? Are you using it to pay for books, supplies? Are you using it to pay for your accommodation, your housing here, or your food? Or are you just using it for your own purpose, whatever that is? So before you take a loan, ask yourself these questions and at least understand the options you have when it comes to loans, which I think we'll talk about really soon.
Yeah. So like we need to know like the basic things about it, like what are we going to use it for actually? Because of course it is risky for us as a student that doesn't have any income. I mean, we don't in basic we don't have any income.
Sure.
So, you talk about like we have to like differentiate or know purpose. So, is there like any like several types of study loans? What are they, and do they differ to one another?
Yeah. So before that, I want to touch on the point you mentioned about it being risky to take
Ah,
student loans. And I think
yeah.
there's a special type of risk because when you take a student loan and you don't have a career yet, or you don't even have a degree yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're taking a student loan, you are essentially betting that you will secure a career or a job in order to pay that loan.
Yeah,
So this is something you have to think about and the risk that you have to take into account before
sure.
taking the loan. So I'm just gonna grab my notes about the different kind of student loans. So I would say the most popular student loan, would be PTPTN.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the biggest loan lender of student loans in the country.
True.
So PTPTN, from my research, they give loans to people who are studying locally only in public or private universities, so IPTA, IPTS.
Mm-hmm.
And the loan amount depends on your means. So it's means tested depending on your household income. And when sometimes, I think in the past they used to give a bit more, but now they reduced it a bit,
Yeah.
maybe because of the budget. But PTPTN would be the biggest lender, I would say. And yeah, you have to have more than 1 year left of study. And the thing about PTPTN is you cannot be sponsored by anyone else. So you cannot have any other scholarships, you cannot have any other loans.
Yeah.
PTPTN must be your sole loan provider. So that's PTPTN. And another loan provider would be Mara. So Mara would be for Bumi Putras only. And in some circumstances, I have heard that they've given to non-Bumi Putras. But Mara also covers pre-university as opposed to PTPTN, which is only for university. Mara covers pre-university, so your A levels and whatnot. And you have to have a credit in BM to apply. And you have to be taking a course that is, in Mara's view, important enough for them to give you a loan. Whereas in PTPTN, you have to take a course that is approved by MQA, so Malaysian Qualification, something I can't remember, but the MQA board. Whereas in Mara, it's more they decide on who they want to give the loan to. So besides PTPN, besides Mara, we have Kojadi or Koperasi Jaya Diri Malaysia. So this one, they actually give out loans if you study internationally as well. So from my research, the local loans are up to 100,000 ringgit and the international loans are about to 200,000 ringgit. I'm not so sure on the interest rates on this, but another lender we have is MIED, so Maju Institute of Education Development. You have to have good academics, good curriculum, and you have to apply for PTPTN first. And the thing about this MIED is that they instead of giving you the money, so in my experience, I'm not so sure about Mara, but I had a PTPTN loan, and they would deposit the money into your bank account, and you can use it however you want. But some other lenders like MIED, they pay your university directly, so you don't have access to the money. So that is something you have to consider as well when you're taking a loan, whether the money is going to you directly or the money is going straight to the university.
I see.
And then we have a few private lenders like Maybank and Bank Rakyat. So for these guys as well, you have to have certain academic records, so CGPA above 3.0, good curricular activities. The interest rate, I think, depends on your agreement between them. And from my research, you can get up to 30,000 ringgit in loans. And for some of these loans, you have to already be in university and already pay the fees for your first semester. So from the lender's point of view, they want to see that you have a track record, and because they're assessing risk as well. So they want to see that you're already in uni and you're already studying halfway, and then they will give you that loan.
I see. I never thought there are much more than PTPTN and Mara, because that's all I heard.
I never knew either until I came on this show. I had to do my research.
Sure. So, you mentioned earlier that loan is actually different from scholarship, right? So how is it different?
Yeah. So for loans, what you have to think about is you're lending money. So you're borrowing money from a lender, and you have to pay it back with interest. But for a scholarship, usually what happens is that you're given a grant to study, so they are sponsoring your education. Sometimes scholarships are they say, not bounded. So you don't have any obligations to the scholarship provider once you finish your education. But most scholarships that I've come across, there's some form of binding agreement or some form of career plan that they want to involve you in. So for example, CIMB, Maybank, Petronas, usually when you finish your study, so you would be studying something that is related to their business, in the field related to the business, and instead of paying back in money, you would pay back in your time, in your career. So this could be anywhere between 5 years, 3 to 5 years to 10 years. I know that the JPA scholarship, which we did talk about, they would require some people in some fields, for example, medical fields, to work in the medical industry for about 10 years with the government. So those are the major differences between a loan. A loan you have to pay back with your money. A scholarship you have to pay back with your time.
Yeah. I see. So like, is there like, I think that's a very interesting points that you pointed out, which even though we got a scholarship, we still have to pay with our times, right? Instead of our money. So that is a very interesting fact that we learned about the differences between loans and also scholarship. We'll be further, elaborate about this part after the commercial break. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere.
Jangan ke mana-mana. Kami akan kembali. Duit tidak tumbuh dari pokok, ianya tumbuh daripada aktiviti simpan dan labur. Mengetahui cara mengurus duit dengan baik adalah antara perkara yang penting dalam hidup dan anda tidak perlu untuk menjadi seorang genius untuk melakukannya. Apa yang anda perlu tahu adalah beberapa asas, pelan dan ikuti kedua-dua perkara tersebut. Pertama, jangan bertangguh untuk bermula. Kadang-kala, sebagai seorang pelajar anda mungkin pernah terfikir yang anda masih muda dan tidak perlukan semua ilmu ini. Sekarang adalah waktu yang baik untuk bermula kerana ianya memakan masa yang lama untuk pakar dalam sesuatu bidang. Mula dari sekarang, walaupun dengan duit yang sedikit ianya akan bertambah dari masa ke masa dan ianya semestinya akan membantu dalam mencapai matlamat kewangan dalam jangka masa panjang. Kedua, mulakan perniagaan sampingan. Adalah hampir mustahil untuk melabur tanpa modal. Berniaga adalah satu bentuk pelaburan tanpa anda sedar. Anda mengeluarkan duit untuk mendapat duit yang lebih banyak. Dengan zaman moden sekarang, perniagaan boleh menjadi amat mudah. Semua perkara boleh dilakukan dengan teknologi. Apabila perniagaan anda berkembang dengan baik, anda boleh jadikan ianya satu perniagaan sepenuh masa apabila anda sudah habis belajar nanti. Ingin memperoleh lebih banyak tips? Pastikan anda mengikuti live kami untuk tips yang seterusnya. Sekarang, siaran akan bermula semula.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Pecuniary Season 3 with me, your host Amira, and we are still with our special guest, EDLY. So, EDLY, we will be continuing our conversation before about the scholarship and also loan. So, is it possible for students to convert study loans to cover for scholarship?
Yes, most scholarships or most loans that I have come across, they have certain say tiers of how much you have to pay back depending on your final grades in university. So for example, if you had a 2.5 CGPA, you would get a 30% discount. If you had a 3.0, you would get a 50% discount. And the higher you get, the less you pay basically. But I would say that I wouldn't count on converting my loan into a scholarship, because I would go into the loan with the mindset that I'm going to pay it back instead of with the mindset that I'm going to convert it and get a discount or something. Mainly because the lender can change the terms anytime. But you have to check with your agreement on that. But usually I would go in with the mindset that if I'm taking a loan, I would pay it back.
So you don't want to gamble?
Yeah, exactly.
Like whether you will get, with your CGPA or not, right? So convertible loans enable study loans to become scholarship in the sense that lenders are exempted from that, like what you have said before. So can you explain in detail what actually is convertible loan in your opinion, and how can this help and convince the students into taking loans?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, the better you score in your grades, the more discounts you will get on your loan, or the more leeway they will have in giving you a waiver. But I wouldn't recommend trying to do that. In terms of how this incentivizes students to take loans, I think it does give students the incentive to really focus on their studies, fully focus on their studies, and really focus all out on and getting good grades. So if you really wanted to, you could kind of make it like a side hustle. You take a loan and you put all your effort into getting those grades so that you basically get free money, in a sense. But if you think that you can do it, then that's good. But for most people, I would recommend, because you can change your mind, you know. But the thing to take note of is that when you take a student loan, you're 18 years old. And when you're 18 years old, what you think you can do or what you think you want when you're 18 may change when you're 19, 20, 21.
Sure.
Right? This phase of life is when we have, when we experience a lot of new things, when most of us are living alone. We move out from our parents' house, and so a lot of things can change.
True. So I think a part of it can like motivate the students, right? But a part of it, like you want to advise them, so do not gamble.
Well, if you're confident in your ability to get a waiver or a discount or convert it into a scholarship, then go for it. But I would say even if you are confident, I would always have a plan on what if I don't get the grades? How am I going to pay it back?
You have to have a plan B.
A plan B. Yeah.
I see. So I think we are done with like understanding like the basic of the loan, and now we are going into like how do we manage the loan?
Sure.
So what should the students prioritize once their loans are approved?
Right. So this is really important. Once your loan is approved, read the agreement. Right. Read the whole agreement between you and the lender. And understand important terms. So a few important things that you need to take note of is how much is the loan? How much interest are you paying? How long are you paying it for? Like what the repayment schedule is. Are you paying every month? For how many months or how many years? And things you also have to take note of is what happens if you drop out? What happens if you get a grade below a certain amount? What happens if you get suspended from your university? So these terms may alter your loan, and some lenders have it in the agreement that if you drop out, if you don't achieve a certain grade, then you have to pay back the loan immediately in full amount. So read the terms. If you don't understand the terms, try to get a friend who can understands law or studying law and ask them to help you out. And from my experience, law students will be very happy to help you out and show you the ropes.
So after approved, step one, read
the loan, read the agreements.
Read the agreements,
Yes.
right? So we get the terms, we have the terms, so it is calculated there, right? Like we don't need to calculate it ourselves, right?
Yes, it depends on the lender. But most of the time, I would say PTPTN, they already calculate the interest and it's quite clear. They have a snapshot of how much you're borrowing and how much you will be paying over time and for how long. So it's quite clear for PTPTN.
For PTPTN, I see. Okay, so another way for them to manage their loan is investment. Like, is it possible for a student who's having a study loan to invest that loan for themselves?
Yeah, so for sure. So when people talk about investing, the first thing that comes to most of our minds is investing in the stock market, investing in crypto or whatever it is, investing in external things. But when you take a student loan, you have to realize that you are already investing in your education. You're paying your tuition fees, or you're paying your food, your accommodation, anything that helps you study your course. So think of it that way, as investing in your education so that you can get a job in the future and get a salary to pay back that loan. But in addition to that, I would recommend that you also invest in your education, in your personal education.
Personally.
So instead of just relying on your university or school to teach you everything, try to invest in books. One of the most simplest things, the most affordable things, sometimes it's free. Just buy a few books, books on money, books on psychology, books on how to interact with people. Those kind of books would definitely help you. In my scenario, when I got my PTPTN loan, one of the first books that I bought was called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh.
So this book is about personal finance and how to manage your money, and it's a very short book, very interesting because it's in story form. So it's like you're reading a story, but you're also learning about personal finance. So yeah, buy some books or learn something that you always wanted to learn, whether it's cooking, knitting, sewing, all those things, if you're interested in it. And if you think that you could get a good return on your investment, in that you could potentially make money out of it, or you could just be a better person, better speaker, better friend, better writer, those things will help you out in the long term.
So like investment doesn't really about like getting the money back, but also to acquire like external skills.
Yeah, for sure.
Other than the university.
So for example, if you invest in your skills, if you invest in your camera, like your videography skills, for example, those skills nobody can take away from you.
I see.
Right? So you have it forever in your life, and you will keep it. And the more, and you will learn more about it, and your skills will stack on top of each other. So for example, we were talking just now about whether law was a waste for me.
Yeah.
When I studied law, I studied, I learned how to write better, learn how to speak, and read better. And these things keep getting better and better and it helps me when I'm doing my YouTube channel, my marketing, my current job. So these skills stack on top of each other. And yeah, you have it forever. You pay, 10 ringgit for a book, and you have the knowledge and skills forever. For me, it's totally worth it.
That's a good way to see, like, to like, define the investment itself, because sometimes when we hear about investment, money, I'm not pretty confident about their own stuff, but eventually, like, investing in another skills is also called investment.
Yeah, for sure.
To better ourselves. Sure. So how about those people who buy like expensive things instead of buying expensive books, because there's books or textbooks that we need to purchase, and it's actually quite expensive, but like they spend it more to like clothes and stuff instead of the books.
Right. So spending on your luxury or your wants instead of what you actually need. Well, I would say it's normal, right? You're 18 years old, probably 19. You got money, like money is coming in. So from my experience, PTPTN, they would bank in the money to you every semester.
Yes.
And so it's for an 18-year-old to have that amount of money in their bank account. If they're not used to it, it could be quite a good feeling. Like, wow, I've never seen that much money in my bank account. Yeah. And this is exactly what happened to me. So I think PTPTN would bank in the money, and at the start of the semester, and I would see this amount of money in my bank account, I would be like, wow, like the feeling is different. You feel like the world is yours, you can do anything.
Yeah.
And I made that mistake as well when I got my PTPTN loan. I bought a PlayStation, right? I bought a PlayStation, and it wasn't the best decision, but don't be so hard on yourself. The money you spend is never wasted if you learn from it. If you learn from the mistakes that you made.
Even if it's a mistake.
Even if it's a mistake. It's not a mistake. Mistakes that you learn from are money in the bank. So you have to make these mistakes at some point, and it's better that you make these mistakes now while it's relatively small than you're not risking anything or playing it safe, and then when you're older or you don't have enough experience because you have never experienced these mistakes. So if you have spent your student loans on luxury items or things that you don't necessarily need, don't be too hard on yourself, but also at the same time realize that you need to correct that mistake by either learning from it or actively doing something that would overcome that mistake.
I like how you put it, like in a positive way. Like even if it's like we can. Some people think that making mistakes, and then you look it at the negative point. But EDLY teaches us to like look at it as something that teaches us that, okay, we have to maybe find more money, or like you know, don't do the same mistakes or something like that. So we will be back after the break. Stay tuned and don't forget to tune in.
Jangan ke mana-mana. Kami akan kembali. Ketiga, pelaburan hartanah untuk selepas graduasi. Antara cara yang terbaik untuk melabur dalam hartanah adalah dengan rumah kediaman. Bagi anda yang baru bergraduasi, beli rumah yang kecil untuk anda duduk sementara, dan dengan bertambah gaji, anda pindah ke rumah lain yang lebih luas dan selesa. Rumah kecil tadi anda boleh sewakan kepada orang lain. Duit sewa pada rumah yang pertama tadi boleh digunakan untuk membayar rumah kedua yang anda sedang duduki. Ianya ibarat anda duduk di situ secara percuma. Untuk membuat pelaburan seperti ini memerlukan modal yang agak besar. Pastikan semasa belajar anda membuat simpanan atau pelaburan lain secara kecil-kecilan. Keempat, simpan sedikit untuk hasil yang banyak. Pengkompaunan adalah satu bentuk proses penjanaan duit melalui pengembangan nilai sesuatu aset. Sebagai contoh, jika anda membeli satu botol air minuman yang berharga RM2 setiap hari, jumlah yang terkumpul dalam setahun adalah RM730. Bayangkan, jika anda tidak membelanja botol air itu dan sebaliknya disalurkan ke program pelaburan yang menawarkan keuntungan 5% setahun, anda boleh memperoleh RM931.69 dalam masa 5 tahun. Inilah kuasa pengkompaunan. Dengannya, anda boleh menjana pendapatan dengan hanya menggoyangkan kaki sahaja. Ingin memperoleh lebih banyak tips? Pastikan anda mengikuti live kami untuk tips yang seterusnya. Sekarang, siaran akan bermula semula.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Pecuniary Season 3, and you are still with me, Amira, and also our special guest, EDLY. So EDLY, we have talked about like what is study loans, and then we have talked about how to manage the study loans. So now we are moving on to knowing like the tips on, you know, how to repay the study loans itself. So of course, it is no secret that loans can affect credit scores, and this raises concern, especially among the graduates who are facing debts. Are there any tips and strategies that can be shared in order to maintain their credit scores?
Right. So I would say in Malaysia, at least in Malaysia's context, student loans are one of the best ways to start your credit score. Mainly because it's easy to get. You don't need to show proof of income to get a student loan, and also because the interest rates are so low and the terms are quite favorable to you. So in terms of credit score, there are a few things that affect your credit score. So the first thing is your payment history. So this is the most important thing, whether you pay late or not. If you pay on time, your credit score will go up. If you pay late, then that will heavily impact your credit score. Right. The second thing that would affect your credit score is your credit history. So how long have you been taking loans for? So from a lender's point of view, if I'm a lender, I want to know, has this guy been taking loans for 1 year or for 10 years? If this guy has been taking loans for 10 years and has been paying back on time every time, then he's a less risky person to lend to. But if someone has only been taking loans for 6 months and I don't have any payment history of him, then it's a bit risky. I cannot gauge how much of a risk he is when I lend him money. So that's why I would say student loan is one of the best ways to build your credit score compared to a car loan or a house loan, especially for students. So other things that would affect your credit score is your credit mix. So the type of loans you have. So for example, a student loan, an ASB loan, a car loan, a house, a mortgage, credit card debt. So these are credit mixes. So in general, the more diverse your loans are, so you have different kinds of loans, the better your credit score is. But I wouldn't place so much emphasis on this because your credit mix only contributes very little to your credit score. And finally, the last thing that also contributes very little to your credit score is your credit application, so your new credit. So how many times do you apply for loans in a month? So for example, if I'm a lender and person A applies for loans once a week, it seems like he's quite desperate to get some money. But if person B applies a loan once every 3 months, it seems like he's a reasonable guy. So those are the things that affects your credit score. If you're worried about your student loans jeopardizing your credit score, then I would say you shouldn't. If you're that type of person, then perhaps it would be better if you don't take loans at all. Because, like I said before, in Malaysia, a student loan is one of the most favorable loans, one of the easiest loans to obtain and to repay back compared to a mortgage or a car loan. So I wouldn't worry so much about negatively impacting your credit score, unless you don't plan to pay it back one time, then for sure. But I would say if you want to build your credit score and if you want good credit, take a student loan and pay it back.
It's like we don't really have to worry about it. Just pay it back on time, and our credit score will be fine.
Yep.
Right. So most lenders allow students to adjust the repayment terms to fit their needs and circumstances. In your points of view, should students go along with the proposed payment period or follow the adjusted repayment terms that were made beforehand?
Right. So I have the idea, or I believe that you should always negotiate. Right? You should always negotiate to get better terms, and most things in life are negotiable. You can negotiate. But in terms of student loans, you can try to negotiate with your lender and request a repayment schedule that better fits what you need. But in this dynamic between the borrower and the lender has most control. The lender calls the shots because they're supplying the money, and you're the borrower. So I would say yes, you can try to negotiate your terms. Sometimes, like for example, PTPTN, they already give an incentive for people to change their repayment schedules. So if you, let's say, pay your full amount within 6 months or within a year, you get a discount. If you do a direct debit every month, you get a discount. So there are already some terms that PTPTN gives you to incentivize you to repay back your loan in different ways. So I would say yes, you can negotiate, but I wouldn't count on changing anything, because from the lender's point of view, you're just another borrower, and they have to accommodate for tons of other borrowers.
I see.
And if they accommodate for you, then if someone finds out, then all of their borrowers will want to negotiate as well.
I see.
So yeah, I would say negotiate, but don't count on getting the
What
best
you want.
terms. Yeah.
I see. So you can try, but it doesn't really for sure you can get it, right?
Yeah. So in every negotiation, you have to know what position you're in, whether you're in how much leverage you have. And in the situation when you're a borrower, the lender has most of the leverage. So yes, you can negotiate, but you have to know what position you're in.
So like they have more power, so whatever they say, we have to follow, right?
Not necessarily. You can still negotiate, but you have once you understand the dynamics, then you can better negotiate.
I see.
Because if you have all the leverage, then when you enter a negotiation, you have to know what position you're in. So when you know what position you're in, then you know how much you can push in the terms.
That's a good point. All right. So how long is like a advisable duration to pay the loans?
Right. So in general, if you have debt, if you have low interest debt, which is anything below, I would say 3%, depending on the current situation, I would say take as long as you need or as you want to pay back the loan. So for example, for PTPTN, it's 1% a year. And I think in my case, it was 15 years. So I would say 1% a year for 15 years, I would take my time to pay it according to the schedule. Because we already agreed it's 15 years, and I'll take my time to pay it. If it's, in general, if the debt is above 3% or is a high interest debt, 4% and above, then I would pay it as soon as possible. And the main reason why is because I would, in Malaysia, I would look at ASB rates. So if ASB returns 5%, 6%, then technically I would be better putting my money into ASB and earning money there instead of paying off all my loans. But there are certain circumstances where it's better to pay off your loan in full. So if you pay your loan off in full, you may not, let's say, benefit monetarily the most. You're not using the spread or the difference in interest between your investments and your student loans to make money. But when you pay off your debt, having no debt on you gives you a peace of mind, and there's a psychological benefit, and some people really benefit from that, of having no debt, no more student loans, and they're basically free. So if you're that type of person who gets peace of mind and who feels relief if you don't have any debt, then go ahead and pay it off if you can. But if you don't mind, and if you have low interest debt, then take as much time as you need to pay it. There's no rush.
Is there any benefit if, for example, the PTPTN, if we pay early?
Yep. So it depends on the season. So it depends on their terms as well. So recently, I think a few months ago, they had a campaign where if you pay it off early, you get certain discounts. So if you pay your half amount, you get a certain discount. If you pay the full amount, you get a certain discount. But you also, if you want to think about whether that would really benefit you money-wise, you also have to think about, if I pay it off in full, I'm getting a discount, 50% discount over 15 years. But if I keep it and pay it off in 15 years, then I could use, I could invest somewhere else where I could get 6%, 7%, and that would compound, probably would be more compared to the 15% discount you get.
All right, that's like a good tips that you gave us to, because I think most people are struggling in, in furthering their studies, and then also to have the study loan. So I would say thank you. Thank you for coming today, and with all of these tips that you give. Do you have like any last words you want to say?
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention was that all the loans that we're talking about right now is for degree loans for your first degree. For your master's or PhD, it might be completely different, but I would assume that the audience here would be more interested in your first degree loan. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, so yeah, I think I would like to thank our guests for coming today, and give us like a clear reference or clear details about the study loans itself, and also I would like to thank the viewers for for staying with us this long. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and also Spotify. So see you again next week with another host and another special guest. See you later. Goodbye.